Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. Or I should say welcome back to me. A whirlwind trip from the slightly exotic to the extremely exotic, starting in Edinburgh, then in New York, and then in Golders Green. I have had a real whirlwind. Thank God for Simchas. It's really, really special to travel for Simchas, and especially because we went to see Elchonan's grandmother, so our children's great-grandmother, who's nearly 99, can I inherit? When the kids went to visit her, they were singing, and as they sang Eitz Chaim to her, so I wasn't sure if it was because some of the mismatched harmonies maybe, but she was sleeping and she woke up and then she started joining in with the songs, which was really special. So we've got some lovely, beautiful video clips, and she kissed them and she gave them a blessing, and it was really something very, very special to be able to go for and to travel for Simchas. That's what it's all about, even though it's very tiring. So anyone wants to know if I've had a lovely break? It's not a break, but it was lovely, that's for sure. So we've got some really quite moving and challenging things that have been going on, as they always do in the last couple of weeks. But I think that because it's been 2 weeks rather than 1 week, for me, it's really been a matter of like, there's so many things that we need to share together as a group. And it's really special to be able to come to this space to be together. Our learning that we're going to do today is for the merit for a refuah shalema, a complete recovery for gorgeous little Libby Sarah Bat Yehudit Suret, who, please God, should continue to grow and gain strength and have a complete recovery together with all of Israel, everyone who needs a recovery, both in body and in mind. And Hashem should look after her and all her family and protect them all. I'm going to start off with a letter, because thank you for those who've been writing to me, and those who haven't, you have been told. Consider yourself. I expect more letters for next week. Okay, dear Jacqueline, I know we're not meeting next Monday, but I have just had the most inspiring conversation with someone which I have to share. The lady I was chatting with, let's call her C, is not outwardly religious in any shape or form. As a family, they do not keep a kosher home. They do not keep Shabbat. In fact, she works on Shabbat. They belong to a Reform Shul. Her grandfather was very religious and was a founder member of one of the US shuls. However, she was not brought up in a frum household. We have in the past had conversations about faith and the struggles as many of us do with her beliefs. And she struggles as many of us do with her beliefs. She told me she wished that she could blindly believe in Hashem as she thinks others do. I like that thinks, because I think everyone assumes that everyone else just has it all worked out, and we all here come together and know that it's okay because none of us have it all worked out. We're working on it. She then told me the story of her husband's aunt, who she is very close to, and who was taken very ill on Erev Yom Kippur. This aunt was taken to hospital, and the close family were called by the hospital to go to her bedside, as the medical team did not believe the aunt had long to live. C went to Shul on Yom Kippur, and as she said, I really prayed to Hashem. I begged him to let our aunt live, and promised him that if she did, I would light candles every Friday night and honor Shabbat as best I could. To suffice it to say that the aunt is recovering. A few days later, C was invited to a shir given by Joanne Dove in memory of the mother of a friend of C. She was totally blown away by Joanne and what she had to say. She actually told the story of the aunt, and at the end, Joanna said that she had a book of blessings which she wanted to give to C. C said that since then she had lit candles every Friday. In fact, she has told her family, her husband and 2 children, aged 13 and 11, that their Friday nights need to be special. She looks up the time when Shabbat comes in. She lights candles, says the blessing in English because she can't read Hebrew, blesses the children, and they make Kiddush and Hamotzi. No mobile phones or TV are allowed. And she says she really cherishes this special time they have as a family. She told me that she had noticed small positive things happening to her, which she attributes to this special change, to this change in belief. She really believes that Hashem is looking down on her. She has old candlesticks from her mother, which she doesn't like, and has ordered from Jerusalem a pair of more modern candlesticks due to arrive next week. C ended our conversation by saying that she still won't have a kosher home and will still work on Shabbat. I ended it by saying, never say never. To which her reply was, yes, you're right. Who would have thought I would be doing this? It bothers her that she can't say the blessings in Hebrew, so I have promised to give her copies of the Shabbat Home Companion, which has everything transliterated. She says that she hopes her grandfather is looking down on her and is happy. When edition 2 of our Choosing the Way of Life book comes out, I have promised to give her a copy. I think we know what story's going in volume 2, don't we? What an amazing story. I love this idea that you never know. With all of us, we never know. We just take steps. You know, last week I shared with you the video of the hostages talking about the Shabbos Project. So the Shabbos Project started at the same time as Shabbat UK, but it's always stuck to this time of year, like Parashat Lech Lecha, which, to be honest, for us in the United Synagogue was just too much to do 2 weeks after Yom Tov. I think a gift fair was almost set us all over the edge. Could you imagine doing Shabbat UK at that time of year? But what to me is really very special about the project, and that's why I shared this. And anyone who wasn't able to do it last week, there's nothing wrong with this week, you know. But this idea of switching off your phone for 25 hours is such an amazing, incredible gift that Hashem gives to all of us. And it really does so much. Anyone who's ever done it will know it just changes everything. It really does just change everything. So to hear from the hostages, and I was really thinking about it, most of them, not everyone, but most of them are youngsters in their 20s. And, you know, if my age group are addicted to our phones, like the 20s-year-olds, it's like another level, right? They've never not had life without a mobile phone. And you can imagine that these people who came out of Gaza after 2 years, and you can see now, it's lovely, they're posting on social media and they're sharing, I'm going to share with you one of the stories, they're sharing some really lovely things, but actually that's not what they missed. You know, you can see like this addiction to social media, it's gone because actually they're with their families. They're surrounded by love. They're in the land of Israel. They've got something to eat. They've got a shower. They've got just all the things that we completely take for granted all the time. That's really what they need in their life. And I think that having those 25 hours just gives us a tiny little taste of, but to hear from all of them about this idea of what Shabbat gives to us, and this idea that, you know, that more than the Shabbat kept the Jewish people, more than the Jewish people kept Shabbat, Shabbat kept the Jewish people, or we've shared before the Zemer, the song that we sing on Shabbos, which is, if I keep Shabbat, then Hashem will protect me. And you can see for this lady as well, how the little things, you know, she can't do the 25 hours, that's okay. But she's lighting candles, she's having a Shabbat meal, they're turning off the TV, the phones are away, and they're connecting as a family. And the story, if you'll remember, when we shared about Kiesh Shabbat, about this soldier, they kept 3 hours, and it was torture for them to keep 3 hours, but they kept 3 hours. And there's no such thing. I think one of the biggest tools that our Yetzer Hara, our evil inclination, uses against us is to say, oh, that's too hard. It's too big. Or they'll say to us, do everything. And then they know the Yetzer Hara, like it's kind of the voice inside of us, you know, like, oh, try do everything. And then you can't do, oh, forget it, you can't do anything. You know, don't speak Lashon Hara ever. And then when you mess up, okay, forget it. I'm just someone who always speaks Lashon Hara. Rather than saying, take 20 minutes where you're going to be careful. Take an hour where you're going to really keep Shabbat. Whatever it is, everyone knows on their level what it is that you know inside of you you really want to do. But not to get overwhelmed by like, you have to do everything and it has to be for always and it means you'll never, ever, ever. Okay, do a little bit, do it now, see how it goes. And I think that's something that all of us can really resonate with and can connect to. And like I said, the messages from the hostages was so strong. I thought that video, to hear how Shabbat really gave them so much. And I think for our community, especially to hear Elkanah share that message. What's interesting is I think you all have all seen some of the hostages have been out there speaking a lot, and some of them really aren't. And I think Elkanah was an example where there's not been a lot of videos of him speaking. And even just that short message of saying how they would sing Lechadodi and, you know, Mizmor Shir. And I just was thinking how, like, he was here with us every week while we were singing. He was there singing. But, you know, our beautiful TGIF where we all join together and we all sing together. And we had his picture, but actually we had him, his soul. He felt our singing. And there's something so special that the same songs that they sang there, we sing here, and we all connect together on a soul level that they could feel it. And as you know, Omer Shem Tov keeps talking about, you know, the idea of whether you want to call it prayer or sending good energy, it doesn't matter the word that you use. In the same way, you know, if we have struggles with how do I relate to God, whatever it is that you speak to, that's God. It's okay, whatever you want to call it. But you know, this idea of just having this conversation, whether you feel like you're talking to yourself, whether you feel like you're talking to a loved one who's no longer here, we all have that sense of connecting to something bigger. And I think that, you know, hearing those words from Elkanah specifically, because our community twinned with him and we got to know his family and we feel like we know him, really felt like something so special. I think especially because for the last 2 years, our Kabbalat Shabbat, our TGF was such a big part of what our community does. And that's what he was really resonating with. And that was the small message that he did share. Okay, I'm going to read another message that someone sent me. Dear friends, as I sit with the quiet of my thoughts at 74, I find myself reflecting on something that has taken me a lifetime to understand. Something I wish I had grasped earlier, but perhaps could only truly appreciate now. For much of my life, I wrestled with the question of God's existence. I read, pondered, debated, and doubted. And yet, only recently have I come to a kind of clarity, thanks in part to the writings of Maimonides, the great medieval philosopher and physician. Maimonides does not offer easy answers. His logic is rigorous, even austere. He teaches that belief in God must be grounded not in emotion or tradition alone, but in disciplined reason. He insists that God is not to be described by what he is, but by what he is not. But for any attempt to define God in human terms diminishes the divine. This negative theology is not intuitive, and it certainly isn't comforting in the conventional sense. But it is, I believe, profoundly honest. It has taken me decades to read, consider, and finally accept this view. And now, with fewer years ahead than behind, I feel a sense of urgency, not panic, but purpose. I want to spend what time I have left learning, evaluating, and living in accordance with this understanding. Why now? Perhaps because youth seeks certainty, while age tolerates mystery. When I was younger, I wanted answers that fit neatly into my worldview. I wanted a God who was relatable, even predictable. But life, its joys, its losses, its quiet revelations, has taught me that truth is rarely tidy. And Maimonides reminds us that the divine is not ours to grasp, only to approach with humility. I do not share this reflection to persuade, but to invite. If you ever find yourself wondering about the nature of God or the purpose of belief, I encourage you to read Maimonides, not for comfort, but for clarity. His logic may challenge you, but it will also refine you. And if nothing else, may we remember this together. The search for meaning is never wasted, even if it takes a lifetime. With respect and hope, a fellow traveler. I love this because actually it gives us permission to continue to grapple as we journey. That's okay. And to think more deeply about what is God, and to realize that actually knowing what God isn't is a way of defining God as well. But I did cheat because I wrote back, which I never do. You'll all know I never reply. I bring it here and I discuss it here. But I wrote back and I said, could you tell me where in Maimonides to look it up? Which part of Maimonides is huge? And you'll love this answer. Hi. I remember Rabbi Sachs using a huge computer library to retrieve information. I do the same, but ask AI to work with me. I love that, don't we all? So my written answer would be, Maimonides' negative theology, a modern breakdown. Maimonides argued that God is fundamentally beyond human comprehension. So instead of trying to describe what God is, we should focus on what God is not. This approach is called negative theology. Why describe God by negative? When we say God is powerful or God is wise, we're using human concepts. Even if we say infinitely powerful, we're still projecting human traits onto something that's supposed to be utterly transcendent. Maimonides believes this was misleading. To preserve God's infinite and non-physical nature, we should avoid positive attributes and instead say things like, God is not weak, God is not ignorant, God is not finite. This way, we avoid boxing God into human categories. The logic behind it. Think of it like this. Every time we say what God is, we risk limiting him. Saying God is X defines him in terms we understand, which shrinks the mystery. But saying God is not X keeps the door open. It acknowledges that God transcends our categories. Maimonides even suggests that phrases like God is living should be understood as God is not dead. Not because God is alive in a biological sense, but because he's the opposite of lifelessness. It's a subtle but important shift. Why it still matters. This approach protects this transcendence and mystery of God. It also encourages humility. We can't fully grasp the divine, and that's okay. It's a way of saying God is bigger than our word. A bit like learning maths using a calculator. That's it. Sorry, a bit like using math using calculator. That's the end of it. I started running into the next one. So I think what's really interesting about this is it's so different to the actual Torah, because the Torah does talk about God's mighty arm, right? And you know, God took us out with an outstretched arm, and it does talk about God's anger. But for us to try to understand what it's talking about, it's really helpful to say God doesn't have an arm. God is not, you know, God doesn't have limited might. God doesn't have, you know, human anger. So I do really think like it's a really different way of thinking. But I think what, you know, for those of us who maybe aren't quite as philosophical as this writer, I think what's really interesting is to think about what God is or isn't. Do we do that often enough? And I think that for me, one of the main things about what we come here to do is whether we can grasp God or not, the incredible thing is we can have a relationship with him. So in terms of our human understanding of relationships, you can't have a relationship with someone you don't know. You just can't. Even if the only way you know them is, I don't know, through the internet, let's say, but you still know something about them. To have a relationship with someone who you completely can't grasp doesn't exist in terms of human relationship. But yet, we know we can't grasp God, right? This negative theory makes sense. We can't, you know, our brains don't understand what infinite means. Like, what does that actually mean? It means you keep counting and keep counting and keep counting and then keep counting and then keep counting, and it never ends. But what does that mean? Because we all know that everything ends, but yet God never ends. And I think that idea of being able to still have a relationship with something that we can't grasp is an incredible thing. But how do we do that? How do we have this relationship? How do we have this idea of faith, of Emunah? And that's, you know, part of what we've been talking about and what we've been grappling with. And I saw a clip that was shared from, I think his name's Rabbi Landau, and he was talking about the idea that people think that faith means working really, really hard, and then you have faith. Right? If you work really, really hard, if you come every week and you listen really hard and you think about it and you watch things and you learn things and you read a book and the more you delve into it, the more faith you'll have. And he said people have it wrong, because faith doesn't mean that you have to try harder. Faith means that you have to surrender. Faith means that you have to say, okay, Hashem, I don't know, I don't understand. I give it to you. You know, we've shared this verse before. Send your worries to God. It doesn't mean try and figure out how Hashem's going to make it work out for you. It means send your worries to God. God's going to take care of it. This idea of being able to let go of control rather than grappling more and fighting more and trying to fight more. I think it's quite a profound understanding of what faith could be. Faith means letting go. So one of the things that happened while we were in the States was the New York elections. And Elchanan had his voting card. And on the day of his niece's wedding, on Tuesday morning, while we were getting our hair and makeup done, Oki ran to the voting stations and he voted. And you can imagine the mood in, it's interesting actually, my brother-in-law, so the bride's father is called Mayor, that's his name. So we were joking as the run up to the wedding, we're like, can't you just be the mayor? Like that's, you know, that's who we need as the mayor. I think New York would be a very amusing place because he's a very funny guy. But you can imagine I spoke to one of the relatives at the wedding and she's like, you know, we're getting a place in Israel, we're moving there. Someone else is talking about moving to Florida. Like, this is obviously very nerve-wracking times. And there was one picture that I saw, a post that someone shared on their WhatsApp status actually, that just made me stop and just made me think, okay. And actually, I think it's such a helpful thing to transfer to any situation in life. Listen to this. This is your reminder. Zohran Mamdani doesn't control what happens in New York City. Hashem does. And his plan is perfectly designed. Trust. So whether it's about Mamdani, whether it's about what mess is going on in this government, whether it's about what mess is going on in any other country in the world, who runs the world? Who's really in charge? I have no idea why Hashem decided that this should be the mayor of New York City. I have absolutely no idea. What I found fascinating was there was definitely more speak about moving to Florida than going to Israel. But if you were there, anyone who's been to New York, well, you can understand it's so much further away than here. You know, I do get it, and the mentality is so different, and the type of life they have there. Like, you know, as much as we say, like, how many people could here really just everyone just pick up and move? It's not an easy thing to think about, and whether they will move or not, I don't know. But it's just a really interesting idea of 1 second, who decided that he should win the election? So we could say it's because there's so many people there. I mean, you could feel when we were driving around New York, it's tired. You know, you can feel people are really struggling there. And they need change. And that's what happens when you're looking for change. You vote in the radical young guy who's promising the world to you. That's what people want, is something different. We get it. You know, you see it happen again and again. History repeats itself, etc. But to say that that's why this guy won, you can say that. But does that help you sleep at night? Or is it easier to say, Hashem knows what he's doing. I have no clue. I do not understand what on earth he thinks he's doing. But Hashem runs the world and he knows what he's doing. We all saw in the news, yesterday and today, or yesterday, yeah, that Hadar Goldin's body was finally returned home to the land of Israel. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands. I'm not going to raise my hand. But who thought that would never happen? Don't raise your hand. Over 11 years. Over 11 years. That they were going to find his body to be able to bury it. And you saw the pictures of his troop, his brigade coming to greet him and to bring him back. And his parents saying that This is what the Israeli army does. They bring them back. They look after their own. They make sure that no one's left behind. It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable what the Jewish people will do. And I don't know what that cost in terms of what needed to be traded, or, you know, if you think about what's been happening the last few weeks, but we're not focusing on that. We're focusing on the incredible nature of our Jewish people. But can you imagine the parents and the family? How do you hold on for 11 years to believe that they're going to come back? How do you hold on to that faith? And one of the bat mitzvah, I shared this with you already, but one of the bat mitzvah girls I'm preparing with at the moment, we're talking about Joseph. We're at the beginning of the story of Joseph. That's our parasha. And you think about when Yaakov was told that his son, his favorite son, had been killed, and he was shown his coat dripping in blood, and he was told, you know, that had happened. And it's interesting because the Torah talks about this idea that Yaakov was never comforted. And there's an interesting idea. Anyone who's gone through any loss will know that comfort does happen. There is a concept called nechama. There is comfort. You can be comforted after a loss. It doesn't mean that anyone ever gets over it, or that, you know, these really unhelpful things people say, like time heals and everything's going to, that doesn't happen. But there is a level of comfort. Yet with Yaakov, he couldn't be comforted at all for 22 years. And the sages teach us that part of the reason that he couldn't be comforted was because actually he hadn't died. So the special comfort that Hashem brings to a family, to someone who's lost a loved one, is because that soul has departed. Yosef hadn't died. He was still there. But yet Yaakov held on for 22 years. He wasn't comforted. And then obviously when they were reunited, it made sense he couldn't be comforted. His 22 years, there wasn't any comfort. Why? Because the person he'd lost was still alive. And you think about it, over 11 years for the Golden family, that they finally have their son home to bury. There is something so beautiful about being able to bring someone to burial, to Kavarat Yisrael, to burial in the land of Israel, in the land that he loved. So I wanted to share with you, this is a note. I find it, yeah. This is a note from his sister I just saw this morning. It's translated by whatever the, you know, automatic translation. So anything that sounds not great is because it's translated from the Hebrew. But this is from his sister. So they've brought Hadar home. This is from his sister Ayelet. More than anything, this is my little brother. Time has stopped. I still feel that moment has just gone out, and he's already coming back. How do you contain the fight over a dead brother? How do you fight a soldier that went out to battle, fighting to return home? And in fact, he will be brought back in a coffin. How do you feel? I don't know yet. But I do know that what strengthens me is that we stay true to our truth, to our Israeli values. We stand alongside brave families, on the side of soldiers, alongside amazing men and women. And the straight path prevails, good wins, and we are changing history together. And it makes me very strong. It will be good here, thanks to all of us. And we will bring them all, and we will be restored. And it gives me strength. My Hadar, you are my inspiration, and you live in my heart always. And I love you very, very much. And finally, you came home. This idea of the good of our people and of holding on to strength and hope is a very powerful one. I want to share with you something that I saw. I'm losing all my bits now. That was shared from this week's parasha that we just read, Vayera. Which is talking about we're talking about the story of Abraham and Yitzhak I just need to find the right order. Okay. So it starts like this. God stopped talking. Abraham started counting. Then everything changed forever. This week's Torah portion, God tells Abraham to leave his home and go to a new land, the place where his nation will be born. Then God said, look up at the sky and count the stars. So shall your offspring be. But there's something very unusual in how this story is written. In this one verse, the Torah says the words, and he said, twice. He took him outside and he said to him, so shall your offspring be. That double phrase shouldn't be here. The Torah doesn't waste words. So what would it add why would it add a second and he said when no one else but God is speaking? Rabbi Meir Shapiro gives a breathtaking answer. When God took Abraham outside and told him to count the stars, Abraham actually started counting, even though he knew it was impossible. And God waited, watching Abraham try the impossible before continuing. So shall your offspring be, meaning your children will be just like you. They'll never stop trying, even when the world says it can't be done. Look at us today. After 2 full years of fear, hate, and heartbreak, the Jewish people still stand tall, still counting stars, still believing. We've proven the promise true. We build, rebuild, rise and return again and again. Chins up, hearts strong, eyes to the heavens. We are the stars Abraham once tried to count, still shining through the darkest nights. This idea of counting the stars, it doesn't make sense. You know, Hashem said to Abraham, go outside, count the stars. Abraham should have said, you can't, impossible. But he didn't do that. He started counting. That's what we do as a Jewish people. We start, we try. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. You know, you think what's happened in the last 2 years, none of it makes sense. But as a Jewish people, we have to stay strong to our values. We can't give up. The fact that we exist as a people doesn't make any sense. You know, we started with the story of lighting candles for Shabbat. I've shared this so many times before, but I really believe the only reason any of us are here is because we have a Bubba, a great Bubba, great Bubba, who stood crying over their Shabbat candles, saying, please make sure that my great grandchildren will be Jewish. And we are. And we are, and we're here. And we continue to cry over our candles. And we continue to say to Hashem, it doesn't make sense. Think about how every generation wanted to kill us, including in our generation. They don't want us here. And we're here, and we're strong, and we're good. And no one would blame us for being the most negative, bitter nation in the world. So much bad has happened to us, and we're not. We focus on good. I want to share a couple of really uplifting, beautiful things that I saw. So the first one is these two pictures. This picture. Okay. This picture as well. You can see the man standing in front of a fridge. Okay. Also, let's see, standing in front of a fridge full of food. Yeah. But listen to this. Big news. Hirsch's Fridge, the nation's first kosher outdoor community fridge, open 24/7 for anyone in need to take or share food, is open. Help us spread the word about this exciting initiative. Baruch Hashem, it's already been used by our neighbors, and with SNAP benefits shutting down this week, we anticipate the risk of hunger rising sharply. If you or someone you know could benefit from some prepared meals and/or grocery staples like eggs, cheese, bread, etc., please come by 8800 East Priory Road and find the 2 fridges and dry good pantry. If you would like to learn more about how the fridge works and the amazing system that the Solo staff and volunteer leadership have put together, and how you can volunteer or donate funds to keep the fridge stocked, please visit. Hirsch's fridge is named for Hirsch Goldberg Polin, who was taken captive on October the 7th and heroically endured 328 days of captivity before he was murdered by Hamas terrorists. Hirsch changed the world through his compassion, humor, and desire to bring people together. Through this fridge, Hirsch's values of chesed, community, and bridge building will continue to serve as a blessing. Just one example. I know here in Bushy we do our own version, but isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing? This is another really lovely post that I saw that I wanted to share with you. So over here, we have a picture. I don't know if any of you saw this. This is Segev Kalfon, one of the hostages who was just released. And he's got a lovely burger and chips and salad. Eating. One word that has been so meaningful to me in the last 2 years. I remember when hunger became my friend, accompanying me at every step and every part of the day. When I didn't eat for days, my body became empty space, as if it was eating itself from the inside. Every noise of their cutlery, every smell of food they ate was like a stab in an empty stomach. And here now, I'm in front of a table full of all the flavors I've been dreaming about for 2 years, with the option to choose everything I've dreamed of. It says pillows, but I think it means karyot, which are those little, the Israeli little cereal with the chocolate inside that my kids love. Chocolate, hamburgers with a mountain of fries, mum's fish with dad's challah. That feeling when the food enters my mouth is like a new experience. It's not just about the physical sensation. It's about freedom, the freedom to choose what I want to eat, when I want to eat, and that I don't have to feel guilty about not having. I've lost the next bit. Sorry about that. Anyway, this idea of being so grateful. Anyone who's got a drink in front of you, we've spoken before about this idea of saying Shahakol Nihiyeh Bidvaro. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you for letting me have a sip of water, a cup of coffee, a biscuit, a plain boiled potato. It doesn't matter. Whatever we can open our fridges whenever we want, and we can eat. And we can eat such delicious food. It's amazing. Okay. I wonder if that was in. Okay. I'm going to touch on something that we have touched on before, and is not the easiest of topics. Sorry, just give me a sec because I've been. Okay. Well, it's not such a difficult topic, but I think one of the things that has been quite challenging to see, and whenever we come to this class, as we try to focus on the positive, there was a really challenging rally in Israel that I'm not going to address, but I'm going to read to you a beautiful article talking about a different type of rally. Did you see the ultra-Orthodox rally in Bnei Barak? No, not the rally in Jerusalem, the rally in Bnei Barak, about which they probably didn't hear at all. Again, this is translated from Hebrew. It's a shame. This is an important part of our story. Julie Kupperstein, the mother of Bar Kupperstein, who was taken captive, dreamed about this rally for about 2 years. Her husband, who was injured in a car accident, Tal, had records of mental and physical heroism when he managed to get on his feet and return to walking for the sake of Bar. So that's the video we all watched together. At the same time, she wrote, about the Jewish people, leading to an important and deep connection between secular and ultra-Orthodox Jews in Israel. I saw her on Shabbat, on Yom Tovs, on weekdays, writing in a new language. For the last time we met, just before the deal, when she led a Shabbat of students and young people who kept Shabbat together for the first year of Shabbat in Jerusalem. And the most tense hours then, when everyone was updated on what was the fate of the deal, Julie said, "My deal is not just against Hamas. They want me weak, passive, desperate. My deal, ours, is against the Lord of the world. We have a part in this deal. Who we are, how we will behave, what we will do, how united we will be, how happy are you?" Did I share the video about when the Hamas terrorist called her? Did I put that on the group? Does anyone remember? So the Hamas terrorist had called her during the captivity. I don't have the exact words. I'll share it on the group. But they called her during captivity and said, "We don't see you out there protesting enough. We don't see you making enough of a fuss to the government." And she said to them, "I'm not going to, because my son's not in your hands, he's in God's hands." And the terrorists actually listened to her and kind of left it alone. And you know, I didn't share that video with you. I did. Okay, I did. Good. So this is the woman we're talking about. You know, this is the level of faith that she really felt that her son was in Hashem's hand. And for 2 years, she imagined what the journey home would look like. When he arrives, our journey home will pass through Bnei Barak. Who's been to Bnei Barak here? Not many. Okay, next time you're in Israel, it's a great place to visit. Very different, but it's a great place. Very near to Tel Aviv, but worlds apart. So we'll pass through Bnei Barak, the city I didn't know, but adopted me and had a home. People don't really know this city on this public. So she said, during these 2 years, she wasn't from Bnei Barak. She's not from that background, but they adopted her and they prayed for her and they embraced her and her son. And that's, you know, there was such a focus on bringing him home. And it happened. Thousands accompanied Bar in the city streets this week, singing and dancing around with a motorbike convoy that accompanied the event. He arrived with family and friends, definitely not in an ultra-Orthodox appearance, to a meeting in the city council hall where Julia gave an exciting speech. She told that at Sheba Medical Center, they let her sleep next to Bar in the maternity hospital, and she felt that it was really appropriate. It really was a birth. At the end of the list of thanks, she thanked the people of Israel simply for every tear and every tear. Then the convoy led the young man who worked at the Nova Party straight to the house of Rabbi Moshe Hillel Hirsch, one of the leaders of the ultra-Orthodox community, for a short conversation. I was looking at Julie tell the rabbi about the past 2 years, sharing the conclusions and lessons, and I thought that someone like her could really bridge and find solutions. Deputy Mayor Shlomo El-Jarer said at the event, "Bar, not only you came home, you're bringing us all home. I wish." The conversation and language of the kidnapped that we interviewed this week in a variety of programs and articles indicates that they have risen. They are talking high, elevated souls. I wish they could raise us too, in politics, media, networks, together with them. And I think that this, for all of us, it's really difficult, especially when the media or when just you see things in our people that we don't understand and that we struggle with. And I love the way that this was Sivan Rachav Meir. She could have focused and tried to explain and try to justify and try to make understood the march that took place in Jerusalem. And we can talk about that, but we're going to focus on what brings us together. And the things that brings us together is, as an example, one of the things that I saw was on the way to that march, there was an Israeli soldier playing on the piano and the boys singing around him, and he's played the songs that they knew. The hostages teach us again and again, we have to figure out how to get on with each other. And if there's a type of Jew that you don't resonate as well with, If there's a type of Jew, whether to the left or to the right, whether more religious or less religious, you know the famous saying that I'm normal. If you're more religious than me, you're Meshuggah from, and if you're less religious than you, you're basically secular, right? Every one of us thinks that, right? I think that. My super from family members think that about me, right? Everyone has that. Everyone thinks I'm normal. But whether it's someone who's way, way more religious than you or someone who's way, way less religious than you, whether it's someone who's politically different from you, whether it's someone who's got different views on Israel than you, it doesn't matter. Those people especially, you need to figure out how to get on better with within our community. The people who you disagree with the most, those are the ones you have to make the most effort for. Those are the ones you have to do the most to get along with. One of the things that we're trying to roll out now, and we need to be in this country for long enough to do it, so but is we're trying to really do more of a push towards hosting different people, and Wendy's helping us to run that initiative. But the idea is really to have different people over, whether it's for a cup of coffee, whether it's for a biscuit, whether it's for a Shabbat meal. It's not about inviting the people that are like you or the people that you get on with. Of course you should have your friends, but you do that anyway. But it's about thinking about other people. How can I bring someone who I don't get on so well with? How can I invite them over? How can I go out with them for a coffee? How can we figure out how to get on better? Because all I can promise you is the person who really annoys you, God forbid a million times over, if they were in a tunnel in Gaza, you would love every bit of them. If the person who you just can't stand, who really annoys you, God forbid anything went wrong with them, you would pray for them with all your heart. Don't wait for bad things to happen to people. We've got to work it out now. We've got to figure out how to focus on the good of our people. And there are plenty of things. I think because I look up so much stuff to do with the hostages, and a lot of Israeli things are coming on, and there is so much politics there. Oh my goodness, I don't want to see the stuff that they're saying. It's horrendous, some of the stuff that's going on. But that's the media pushing an agenda. We don't need to focus on that. We can focus on this. They've made a fridge so that people who don't have food in America can go and open the fridge and take the food they need. And we saw it during COVID. There were makollets in Israel that just said on the shelf, if you can't pay, just take it and leave. To the loss of the person whose business it was. And we see it in our community. We have the most incredible community who do amazing things. And I'm asking all of us to stretch ourselves a little bit further, to stretch ourselves to the person who annoys us a little bit, or whose philosophy we don't understand, or maybe to those Jews in Jerusalem or Bnei Brak who look so different, or maybe to those Jews in Tel Aviv who look so different, who don't get it, or who Shabbat doesn't even fall on their register, who don't even light candles on a Friday night. It doesn't matter who it is. Each one of us needs to stretch ourselves a little bit more and think about the love, because that's the message from the hostages. And we've got to have learned that message, because this has been 2 years that none of us ever want to have to go through again. And we have to show God, we're going to trust the process, but you need to see from us that we've learned. We're learning our lesson. We're becoming better. We're becoming more united. We're going to show you, God. You don't need to bring more bad to our people for us to remember that we love each other. We're going to hold on to that love. And here in Bushy, we're going to have a revolution of loving each other. We're going to work on it. And anyone who has other ideas, please do share them. But one of the things we're going to start with is hosting. We're going to start by opening our homes and opening our hearts to other people. And like I said, it doesn't need to be a Shabbat meal. It can be inviting someone in for a coffee. It'd be lovely if it's a Shabbat meal. But just have someone over who you've never, maybe it's someone in this room that you've only just said hello to each week, but you've never really got to know with. Maybe after today you can say, why don't we go out for coffee? You know, why don't we spend some time getting to really know each other? We come here every Monday and Jacqueline just talks and talks and talks. And we don't know if the story she read out is your story or someone else's story. I don't know. Let's talk about it. Let's get to know each other. Let's become friends, because we are in this wonderful room of friends. Let's keep connecting to each other. Next week, please God, we are on the solidarity trip in Israel. We're going to be representing all of you. because I know that not everyone can come with and not everyone's able to go to Israel. But we are there representing the community, and we're going to bring your love and your strength and our unity to the Jewish people there. And if anyone wants to send, we're already taking Kathy's amazing knitters, have made bags and bags and bags of hats for the soldiers. But if anyone wants to send any letters or any messages, we're there to take your messages and to take your love. And I'm sure we will come back. So there's no session next Monday, but the week after, I'm sure we're going to come back with weeks worth of things to share. And those of you who are going to come with are going to just hear the same stories again and again. But I've not been to Nova, I've not been to Be'eri, I've not been up north, I have been to Israel, but there's a lot of things that I haven't seen. So I think we're going to have a lot that we're going to want to talk about and to share. But in the meantime, I really bless us all that we can figure out how, whatever it's worrying us, to realize that that person, whether it's the mayor of New York or whether it's a family member, they're not the ones who are in control of what happens. Hashem is. So we just need to lean to him, not through hard work, but just to let go. And I hope that that can help us all to have a really wonderful week.